my last meeting, because I now declare this meeting open, as I said. Oh, you have names. I could have found that incredibly useful at times. Right, okay. Members of the public, I have to explain to you that unlike a monthly meeting, the first item of business is not public participation, but is the election of a new chair. At which point, once the chair is elected, I will step away from this table and find a seat somewhere, because I'm nosy and I'm interested in who will become deputy mayor. And when that's done, I shall lead the council to their 21-item agenda, and with my very best wishes. I wish to say before this kicks off that congratulate councillors for being elected. I do think it is the bravest thing to put yourself up and run the chance of losing. And there will be people here who will be putting themselves forward to be mayor and deputy mayor, and they are brave and they run the risk of winning or losing. And I say this as somebody who has won and lost many times, that when you lose, there are always second chances, and your chance will come. With that having been said, we are going to conduct the election of chair. For the benefit of the members of the public, so that they understand what is going on here, we run the election of chair under standing orders that itemise that there are written submissions. There have been written submissions of people who wish to put themselves forward as chair. And at the meeting, voting will take place, but when there are more than 2 people putting themselves forward, we have to achieve an absolute majority. So what that means, and we vote by secret ballot on this table, but on this occasion, is that we will have a round of voting if there are more than 2. And if somebody has not achieved 8 votes around the table, then we will, the person with the least votes will drop out and we'll go to a second round of voting. And we pursue that line until we have somebody who has 8 votes, which, given that there are 15 councillors around the table, would be an absolute majority. It would be over 50%. If there is a draw, I still have a casting vote. That is where we are. As I said, oh, by the way, so far we have 5 councillors who put themselves forward to become mayor. I'm so glad so many councillors are interested in stepping into the breach. Our standing orders do allow for somebody who's not yet put themselves forward to put themselves forward. So before we proceed with the actual process of election, I simply ask, are there any councillors around the table who have not been proposed and seconded? If there is anybody else that wishes to put their hat in the ring. Moving on, we now move to the next bit. Now, councillors have made written submissions, quite extensive in some of them. Not all councillors have made written submissions. I would ask councillors if they wish to, those standing, if they wish to make a summary, a shortened version of why they are standing, and I will give each councillor that opportunity. When I have given each councillor that opportunity, then I will open it up to any councillors that wish to ask questions of those people who are putting themselves up, and they may or may not wish to do that. When that is done, then we will move to the vote, which I will explain when we get there if need be. So I'm going to do this alphabetically. So, Councillor Alsbury-Watkins.
Thank you.
Do you wish to say something?
Yeah, really, my statement was just talking about a new future for the town council and what it could look like in the next 4 years, although we have only just started. And it was about that I would use my platform as mayor to inspire and educate the town, and especially the young people, in what the town council is, what we're about, and what we do, and hope that, you know, being someone a bit younger, although not as young as I like to think I am now, that I could hopefully reach out to the younger generation and inspire them to come forward and be part of this council, which I think is an amazing group of people and a, you know, an amazing town that we live in.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Corrigan-Town.
I did send a brief in, but I would like to be, or put forward for mayor, because I think I've worked in the last 4 years very closely in the community, and I feel there's more to be done, and I would like to continue with working with the community. So that is my reason for standing.
Councillor Daw, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I gave a very short email to everybody, so I'll keep this short and sweet as well. I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us. We've got a lot of work to finish off from where we started. There are relationships that need to be mended. And I think my prior knowledge of a lot of the projects that we are currently aiming to get over the line to make way for new work, new aims, new ambitions with new councillors puts me in a good position to ease the transition from the old into the new. I think that pretty much covers it.
Thank you. Councillor Gibbs, would you like to say something?
Well, I've got as soon as everybody else has. I wasn't planning to, but anyway, I obviously gave a reasonably comprehensive sort of detail of sort of who I am, what my background is. I think with that, I've got a fairly comprehensive skill set that will enable me to lead and support and manage the council as we move forward from where, as Councillor Daw said, from where we were to perhaps where we need to be. With that in mind, I've also, with my previous experience on the council, I've chaired committees previously. I was instrumental in the introduction of several projects that have recently been completed, no less than the Storm Tower, etc. I've got very close connections and maintain close connections with the community since I left the council with the town team, which has been successful in gaining funding from Cornwall Council and are starting to produce work and projects from that. And also I'm the chair of the First Food Scout Group as well, so I have clear connections with the youth in the area, and it will be one of my priorities as we move forward. Thank you.
Councillor Tilsley, would you like to say
Yeah,
something?
my initial written brief was very short, but never went out. Yeah, I moved to Bude in 52, so I class myself as nearly Cornish. Went through the school systems here. Went away to Cardiff Training College, became a teacher, spent 3 years teaching down at St James Smith's, came back to the grammar school here, taught at the school here for 40 odd years, and then decided to retire. That was my choice, not anybody else's. And got involved obviously locally with lots of groups and everything else. So I was very passionate about surfing and surf lifesaving, which was struggling at one time, but it's now obviously very strong. But because of that, I had to link myself to the sea pool that was going to be closed down. So we took over running the sea pool and kept that up and running. And at the same time, my love was outdoor sports and whatever have you. So I'm a trustee of the rugby club and passionate about anything to do with Bude, of which a lot of it, of course, is run by the county. And there's the hiccup. But there's lots of things that need to be done and that are in the process of being done, but there's lots of things that have been left out, in my view. I look forward to helping and working with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Tilsley. I now ask, are there any councillors that wish to ask questions of any of the candidates? Councillor Cobble.
I did circulate an email, but I think I did it in some sort of interregnum where all council emails weren't going out properly. I did have a few catchphrases in the last iteration of the last council, and one of them was pointing out elephants in the room. And there's a very, very big elephant that we've all been partially briefed on and will be briefed on some more in the forthcoming weeks, or days even, which is future Bude and the CTAP funding. This council will be invited to say to the people of Bude that climate change is real, that sea level rise is going to happen, and it is likely to impact on this town in the lifetime of many of the people that are around today, possibly even in the lifetime of someone as old as me. And we are going to be invited to participate in a process whereby we identify projects which will help this town mitigate sea level rise and prepare for the future. Now, we've been here before a little bit, haven't we? We've been here before with the Bude Climate Partnership, and things went a little bit wrong. And one of the reasons that things went a little bit wrong is because this council was divided, as indeed the town is divided. So, just to point that elephant out in the room, I would like to ask each of the candidates whether, number one, they could endorse the CTAP project, the Future Bude project, as the outline that we've already been briefed on it. And number two, whether they would be prepared to be the face of that project, dealing with what might be very, very tricky and hostile members of the community moving forward. And I say it because if you haven't had those thoughts as people that are putting themselves forward to mayor, now's the time to have them, because it might happen.
Okay, before any candidate thinks about answering that question, new councillors in particular, I wish to warn them of something, which is they need to consider whether this question is being made or asked of them as a councillor. And as a councillor, you have to be careful not to be predetermined or to signal that predetermination. I will comment on this as chair. I will simply say, from my perspective, my personal way of being mayor was that I always was very precise in what I said and identified whether I was talking as an individual. But when somebody asked me a question, say from the public or out there, about the council's position, I always put the council's position that had been democratically arrived at. And so I will say, exercising a kind of duty of care that I still have to protect councillors, do not feel that you need to answer that. Yeah. Clive.
Yeah, if I could just add to that I have some concerns given that this is a new project, which it is very important that councillors are fully briefed on before any proper discussion takes place. And I'm a little bit concerned that that councillors who are standing for the position of mayor may feel under pressure to make comments without having been fully briefed. And so I would really prefer that we have those full discussions in the fullness of time once those briefings have taken place. So I feel a little bit uncomfortable that this question has been put forward.
I shall give you a chance to reply, Councillor.
In the light of the comments made by the mayor and the clerk, I am happy to withdraw my question.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay. Councillor Gibbs.
I wasn't going to reply directly to the question, but I think at a more general point, and I think I put it in my written statement, I didn't mention it then. I think it's going to be really important as we move forward and form the new council that we're not driven by ideology, and we are driven by common sense and pragmatic solutions to the problems that we have. And we don't slip into this issue of being on one side, or you're either for it or you're against it. I think we've got to be smarter than that moving forward. I think that, thinking about the problems that we have, and we all understand what they are collectively, and collectively agreeing with that solution is the right way to go, and not getting ourselves into long debates over ideology rather than actual pragmatic and common sense solutions to some of these problems.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gibbs. In the interest of fairness, because I did allow Councillor Gibbs to make a second little statement then. Are there any candidates that wish to comment in a similar way to how Councillor Gibbs? Okay, Councillor.
Oh, thank you. Yes, just reiterating what Councillor Gibbs says, there's one word that stands out in all these issues, and that is common sense. We just stay with common sense. Oh, two words, if you like. Yeah. Maths was never my strong point. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just, obviously I saw Kevin's email come out and I didn't answer it basically for the reasons you yourself and the clerk have glossed over. We can't declare a predetermined position before we've had the debate and the vote. As to whether would I be willing to have difficult conversations with the public, Kevin, I think you were here when I did flags. You were here when I hosted the BCP town meeting. I faced the fire, and I feel fairly sure that all of the other candidates would do the same. It's whoever sits in that seat, whether we agree with the decision that is ultimately made democratically on the grounds of vicarious liability, we are all responsible for it, and therefore the person in that chair fronts it.
Any of the councillors wish to say anything? And then we will move to the vote. Okay, councillors and to members of the public. This is a secret ballot. I remind councillors that you are essentially writing one name down of the person that you would choose to become mayor. You can either write somebody's name down, or you can choose to abstain, in which case you leave it blank. But that's your right. Okay, councillors, I now ask you to cast your vote, and then officers will come round and collect the vote and do the first count, or maybe the last count. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, you won't. I haven't spelled it well, just read it. Wait, that's spelled Janet. I always put the hockey as easy.
Yeah.
You can't get it. I take it too much room. Someone in my pocket.
Suspense is killing.
It is. I don't know what it is.
That's what you would have said. That's what you would have said. Yeah, for you.
I do not.
Well, I think I got time.
Yeah. Because that's what we've been smoking.
It's good that we've got genuine sort of diversity of choice rather than coronation. Yeah. I
All right.
Somehow, somewhere.
Brilliant.
Okay, councillors, your attention please.
Excuse me.
Thank you. Okay, our clerk is going to announce the results of the first round.
Right, so votes are in, validated, counted, all the rest. So, starting from the lowest, so Paul Tilsley, there is 1 vote.
Thank you.
For Ray Turner, there are 2 votes. Katie Alsbury-Volkins, there are 2 votes. For Tony Gibbs, there are 4 votes. And for Mike Daw, there are 4 votes. And there are 2 no votes.
Okay, so, interesting times. So, I'm afraid, Councillor Tilsley, you now drop out.
Can I say thank you?
No, thank you. You are the weakest. Goodbye. Yeah.
And we go, councillors, just to be clear, we go to the second round, the same.
Put the suit back in the wardrobe.
What one?
I don't expect to see you every month in that kit.
I always wear the council piece. Don't you know that?
Not that I remember.
Well, this is the first one, that's why.
Well, I think there was a previous situation.
That was my brother.
So just Paul has dropped out.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, have to go again. Yeah. To be clear, your attention please. If councillors are unsure who they can vote for Councillor Alsbury-Hopkins or Councillor Corrigan Turner or Councillor Daw or Councillor Gibbs or none of the above. As in, you could abstain.
No, it's fine.
Thank you.
Should have brought me to fix. Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Now we need to find out where you vote. Paul. Yeah. We're going to find out what you think now. It's going to change by what?
I didn't realise what we were doing. I took it out.
The bottom one drops out each time.
I'm just like, oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, of course it's not.
It was actually.
Although there was probably only 2 candidates last time, wasn't there? But we did it by raising hands, didn't we?
I'm surprised.
That legendary moment where we all just got over. Yeah, you're right. That was it. Stories of wild card. Brilliant.
I'll pick up a bet without knowing something.
Clear majority.
Okay, your attention please, councillors.
second time.
Thank you.
Right, so again, starting from the bottom up, so to speak. So, Katie Audrey-Boggins has 1 vote, Lorraine Corrigan-Turner has 2 votes, Tony Gibbs has 3 votes, and Mike Daw has 6 votes, and there were 3 no votes.
Can we cheer? Well done.
No, not yet. I thought we were there.
Okay. Yes.
There was only, there was only 12 votes.
No.
I tested the 3 no votes, which means only 12 people voted.
Which means I had a majority, but I don't think the rules work like that. Tom, I can see where you're going.
Yes, there are 12 people, but everybody votes, they've just abstained. So we've had 15 people vote, and this is the result so far.
I think there'll be a Stewart's inquiry.
Not there yet. Okay. So, okay, councillors, I need your attention. Thank you. Thank you, councillors.
So set up again.
Yeah,
He's always doing that.
Councillors, your attention. To be clear. Okay. Councillor Audrey-Boggins, I'm afraid you must drop out. That means, councillors, you are now voting for Councillor Corrigan-Turner, or Councillor Daw, or Councillor Gibbs.
Oh, wait.
It's confusing.
Oh, sorry.
You can give some.
I'm just not paying attention as usual.
Feel free to chat.
Oh,
Yeah, this is what's caused the problem. There, he's got like that.
thank you. And another one, well, bring it back.
Yeah, and then that's in black, and then you've got the rest of what Matey Rex was. One was a bigger, and one was a little shit.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So only 12 people voted.
No, irrelevant.
Yeah, all right. Yeah,
Even an abstention is effectively a vote, isn't it? Yeah, it counts as a vote, I think. It's just not vote for or against.
Right.
be interested in a draw here. Could happen.
Yeah. Okay, I'm biased, of course.
I hope.
President Republic of Russia so far. I've learned a lot.
I'm hearing nothing.
Okay, councillors, your attention please. So these are the results of the third round.
Right, so Councillor Corrigan Turner has 1 vote, Councillor Gibbs has 3 votes, and Councillor Dawes has 9. So 2 no votes.
I have to say to councillors that I remind you that in order to get an absolute majority over 50%, you needed at least 8. Therefore, I have no hesitation in declaring Councillor Dawes the next chair. Councillor Dawes, Mayor Dawes, take the chair.
Yeah, I need a new sign now. No, I'm joking.
The gallery.
Oh, the gallery's mine as well. Yeah, Steve.
The 3 roads on.
Private competition. Right, before we move on to the Deputy Mayor, I'd just like to thank my predecessor and former Mayor Haynes. He did a great job, and I would like to thank everybody for giving me support around the table. 3 in, so the secret voting,
Yes.
private balloting, secret voting, and so So, I believe we have 3 candidates, Councillors Corrigan, Audrey Rockings, and
Heather Coulson.
Sorry, would you like to give brief statements as to why, or are you happy to just proceed straight to the vote?
My email to everybody, hopefully you got it, was relatively brief. For those who don't know me, I grew up in Bude. I came on the council because I got fed up with voting for head council. So here I am, and here I am again, and I would like to be deputy mayor. And Mike has done this before, and he knows what he's doing. I don't, if I'm elected. We will need his guidance.
Okay, you two both happy with the previous?
Can I just add
Yeah,
that
say something.
I would be really proud to be deputy alongside you. You were mayor in my first year, and I learned a lot even just from sitting here from you. So I'd be honoured to work alongside you and support you in whatever way you needed to be supported. So that was all I wanted to add.
Anything? No, happy? Okay, fine. Would anybody else like to put themselves forward for nomination? No? Would anybody like to ask any questions? No? In that case, we'll move to the ballot. You can vote for Vicky, Lorraine, or Katie.
Get my steps in, indeed.
Right, so the role of deputy mayor. We have from the lowest to the highest, we have Councillor Corrigan Turner had 2 votes, Katie Alsbury Hawkins had 4, and Vicky Herbert Colson had 6, and we had 3 no votes. So we will have to vote again. I think that was. Yeah, it's political, isn't it?
All happy? They get paid to do it.
They're all asleep.
Yes, I thought it would be.
So has somebody not got a ballot?
I'm like you need to.
Oh.
I'll have to better.
Sit down.
Already again?
Yeah. I just hope it's in his name.
Thank you.
Interesting thing. It's very good for children. I'm still on the fence.
Yeah. I'll come to you
Yeah, it is. So we.
Why are they putting the planning meetings for 6 o'clock then?
I haven't.
Hey?
I haven't. I'm being consulted.
What do you mean you haven't?
Me?
Put it back to 3 then?
No.
That would be a later item on the agenda.
Councillor O'Sullivan.
Deg.
You know me. That's why I didn't put my name forward.
Councillors?
Okay, so I can declare that Katie Aldbury-Bockings received 5 votes and Councillor Herbert Coulson 8 votes, and there are 2 no votes. I will declare Councillor Herbert Coulson deputy mayor. Thank you.
Okay, now we've got through that rather briefly. We'll proceed. Cheers. Thank you, Steve. To note that councillors have signed declarations of acceptance of office to note remaining vacancies and to implement the process of co-opting members. Has everybody signed?
Yes, so all councillors who've been elected have signed the declarations of acceptance of office. There are 3 remaining vacancies in Stratton Ward, and we will proceed with implementing the process of co-opting those to fill those vacancies. So I just wanted to inform you as ways. No, and we will be making sure that it's well publicised, and depending on the timing, this will happen either at the June or July meeting.
Okay, thank you. Item 4, to receive apologies and accept the reasons for any non-attendance. We're all here, I think. Item 5, to receive any declarations of interest on items on the agenda and agree any dispensations. Does anyone have anything to do there? Okay, so participation, public participation. I'm going to come to you first because I know you've got to get away, and then I will come to the rest of the week.
Thank you, Chair, and well done to all of you for standing again for the future of Town Council. For some of you who don't know me, I'm the former councillor for Hamstock. I don't turn up very often, as some of you probably noticed, because I'm usually got several meetings, and that's why I'm going now. So I've got another meeting at 7 o'clock. So I just wanted to introduce myself to the people that didn't know me. Also, I just wanted to ask a question, sort of in public question, because obviously, as you know, we've all gone through an election period, and we've been having quite a few issues coming up on the doorstep. And one of the ones which is sort of in your patch, and I have spoken to Councillor Emery, who's the new councillor for Stratton and Warnstow. It's about the roundabout at Hill Head, and I can ask via email, but obviously I was just wondering if there are any plans to continue to improve that as a point of entry into Bude, because it came up on the doorstep. So that was my sort of main question. The second thing I wanted to just highlight with Councillor LaBrosse was we've been hitting the ground running since we first got re-elected, and that's about the bus, but I'm sure he will talk to you about the number 12 bus. Sorry, I've landed you in it, haven't I? So,
It's on my notebook.
Oh, okay, that's good. So again, we're just trying to show that we're trying to work together for Bude, and again, it's just a question of really understanding if there are any issues. As I say, I look after Poundstock, which is the rural bit, and obviously the little bit of Bude that I do is on the shorelands, which is the estate at the back, obviously. But I'm off to Lawnsource. I look after 8 other parishes, so my life's a little bit busy most of the time. But as I say, any issues, just come back to me. So that's really what I wanted to say. And on that note, I'll go.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
Hold on a minute, hold on.
Hold on. Right, okay. Yeah.
You mentioned the buses, good.
Yeah, Pete will tell you all about the buses.
Yeah, I want you to use well, because you're a councillor.
Yeah.
They're Go Cornwall are without a shadow of doubt the most bloody useless company in the whole world. Run a bus company, you wouldn't let them run a bath. I had to go to Derriford a fortnight ago.
Yeah.
I got as far as Callington and that was it.
Right. Yeah.
Where's the other bus? Oh.
I know, this is issues we are literally dealing with this week. We're trying to organise a meeting with Go Cornwall's managing director. He's been a bit evasive at the moment.
Good, can you let me know when, because I'll come.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for Cornwall Council. Yeah, but I'm sure Pete will let us know, well, he'll let you know as a town council what's going on. But we've also got IMP involved, so we're just trying to see what we can do about that. So,
Right.
okay.
Can I just briefly ask one question, because it has come up, it's an issue that has come up here. During the course of the election campaign, Ben Maguire said that he was talking about the spaceport and all that sort of stuff, and he talked about the £200,000 and Councillor Gardner, who has been appointed something or other now. And anyway, Ben Maguire said that I haven't been an MP for long, but I can't spot blatant corruption when I see it. He then went on to talk about whatever, and he said, I'm afraid this goes far beyond Councillor Gardner, and the spotlight now also turns to the Council's highly paid Chief Executive, its monitoring officer. Do you agree that the monitoring officer could be, I mean, it's come up, I've raised the issue of transparency in relation to the monitoring officer, but Ben Maguire calls it corruption.
Well, I can't speak for Ben, obviously, in that way, but obviously that we're in the midst of a new council. What that change means, we don't know. So I think there may well be changes that we all might like to see changes, whether it be the officers and or monitoring officers and or chief executives. But we won't know that, I'm afraid, until the full council is put in place by next Tuesday.
Would you agree that there is serious question marks over the monitoring office?
No, I can't comment on that. I wouldn't say that.
That's what I want to say.
All right. Does anybody have any questions specific to Bude-Stratton or free now? No.
Okay.
Let's go.
Thank you guys. Good luck.
So, members of the public, I think it's easy, so I just start down saying that.
Yeah, I'll just say something. So, Aidan Gannon, so I'm just here representing Connect View tonight, really, and the important point is, I think we're going to talk about it a bit more, is the buses. Up till recently, we've been fighting and arguing to try and get improvement on number 6 service, but now we find the number 12 is in an even worse state. So, hopefully, we can have a good discussion about it.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes. First of all, congratulations,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, and to your deputy. This year is the bicentenary of the completion of View Canal, and in relation to that, the View Canal and Harbour Society will be having various celebratory events. The first one is on Saturday, the 5th of July at the Falcon Hotel, with some entertainment, hopefully, but yourself and your wife or partner, or if need be the deputy, will be invited as our guests, because it's quite an important day. It's the date when it was completed is not clear, it's not a date stated, but it was 1825, and it's probably that they ran out of money and they just stopped as it was. So I hope that you and your wife or whatever can attend.
Or whatever.
Thank you for the invite.
He's in the movement.
Or whatever.
He might take you.
Yeah, just quick one, Michael, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
For the new councillors done me, I'm the chairman of the Bude British Legion and also the secretary of the Royal Marines Association. I was hoping to speak for the RNA tonight, but Calvin's not answering my email, so he's probably got a fishing rod in his hand or something. I'd like to thank the council for their efforts on Thursday. I thought it was great. Ian, thank you very much for your efforts on the hill and also on the castle grounds. So sorry I couldn't attend, I was too many places that day. But just to let you know that Royal Marines had a do in the folk in Bankulan, and we've raised about 1,250 quid for Forces Charity. That was mainly organised by Chunky Phil. And also at the social club, I'm going there in the next few weeks to collect some money that they've collected. And also next week, we're collecting money from the Bowls Club. I was going to say thank you to the mayor that's just gone. Although we've had differences on different things, he's been an excellent supporter of the armed forces and veterans in Bude, and he's turned up every time we've asked him to, so I'd like to thank him for that.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Mr. Chair, can I mention something linked to that?
You can.
A parishioner came up to me, was very upset about the lack of flags and support, in general on that particular day. And they hope that when it comes to Pride Day, that it's definitely not more flags out then than there were for the remembering those who gave their lives. Just a matter of point, but that's what incensed a member of the public.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to have to stand up. The lady that's talking to her friend, would you like to say anything to the council? No? No? Paul?
Yes, please.
Go on then.
Can I congratulate you, Michael and Vicky, on your election?
Thank you.
And all the other councillors on their elections. But I would like to remind this council that in the next few years, you've got some very important things to consider and to push through. And I will be at odds with our present mayor over one particular issue. It's where he wants to site the wheeled sports facility.
I would come back with it's where the community wants to site.
But this is where I beg to differ. And I would like to point out that the last time, well, not the last time, because the last time that the dams were forcibly taken from the public, we had a pitch and putt. But the time before that, the actual local bobby got tarred and feathered when they tried to enclose the dams. Now, what I'm going to say to you, this is a different matter, but this is the start and can be the thinner end of the wedge. There are councillors here who sat on councils who investigated putting 100 car park on the pitch and putt and the tennis court area. Now that, luckily, they decided not to go ahead. But what I'm afraid of and what I feel is that if we start putting concrete on the downs in the form of, unfortunately, a youth facility, we will end up losing the downs to all sorts of various ideas that are very good in principle, thank you very much, but not what we need to keep viewed as it is today. The idea of progress, I totally accept. The idea of a youth facility, I totally accept. Just please find somewhere else than the dams, because if you start it, other authorities will take on the mantle and say, well, you did that, we'll do this. And before you know it, we'll have tarmac all the way up on the grass area. We'll have various pieces of the land where you can put things. Oh, we just want to do this. Please don't start that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Richard, do you want to say anything?
Yes. Not planned, so it might be a little bit haphazard. At the beginning of this meeting, the councillor mentioned elephants in the room. And I would like to speak about elephants in the room. The phrase hostile members of the public was put to councillors. I was glad to hear the previous mayor and the clerk speak in mitigation, for want of a better word, about that phrase. Now, I accept that climate change is happening. I also accept that I may be regarded by some people as one of the hostile members of the public in relation to some aspects of this issue. I'm not hostile. I am determined. There has been, in this council's own words, poor governance shown in responses to climate change in this town. It has caused massive disagreements, ill feeling, and basically we have got nowhere in mitigation as a result of it. To my mind, there is not one project in this town that mitigates the effect of climate change. We have to have practical methods put in place against this threat. I'm glad to hear that the phrase common sense was used. Common sense will need to be applied. We will need to be practical, we will need to be effective, and this council, in my view, is the best, probably the only body that should be taking responsibility for this issue, and I hope to see you take it up. Thank you.
You like to reply?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. And my point was not that people may disagree about individual projects, but that there is a mood in the country, and I think it is reflected in this town as well, which is hostile to the idea, the whole idea of climate change and sea level rise and doing anything at all in response to that. So whilst I agree with what's been said about common sense solutions, and I agree with what's been said about reaching out to the town to work through those solutions, I also believe it will be an incredibly difficult challenge because there will be hostile people who will just not want to listen and will turn their face against any thought that this town could be under threat from climate change or sea level rise.
Okay. The gentleman on the end, do you want to say anything?
My name's George Crossman. I've lived in Cornwall my life, 12 years in the forces. 35 years of that has been imbued. I've been looking at some of the things at the neighbourhood development plan. Out of that, there's a few things: allotments, community gardens, also public toilets, which we still haven't had. I've still got a key. It's not to put me in jail, it's to disabled toilets. I'm losing my voice now. I've never used it in nearly a year. You've got toilets down in Stratton at the moment that you want to turn into a shop and to a post office, which is now the council bought the old post office and shop. Yeah. Why can't you take down that building, repurpose it in Bude, and put back what's supposed to be toilets?
Which building are you referring to in Bude?
The toilets in Bude.
Oh, yeah, toilets. Okay.
Yeah. It's supposed to be disabled. If anybody's gone on that track between the post office and there, you need a motorbike or an ATV. If you go the other side, it's a hill like that. I got COPD, and earlier this year, I had to go to the toilet. My car was too far away. I go down to the beach toilet. By the time I got back, I nearly collapsed. And it took me 6 weeks before I could see a doctor to get a nebulizer to help my breathing in an emergency. Yeah. Why is that the way it is? Even disabled laws came out in 2010. That's been like that since it got taken down as toilets and turned into the foyer. Nobody's doing nothing. And as far as wasting 100 grand on a skateboard park, why not put it towards something that the children enjoy with the grandparents and the parents? Put a proper garden and a lot of money.
Barrister, with the skate park, we did the biggest consultation this town has ever known. 1,800 people responded, and I think it was 86% of them asked for a skate park.
Sorry for interrupting. Why is it put there? You've got so many estates now up on the top, around Safeways, you've got Berries, you've got 2 more estates at the top. You put the furthest way away from any children.
Well, again, I would point to the fact that we asked the people, and over 80% of them asked for it to be there, including the children you're talking about. So we have asked the people, and we are trying to do exactly what the vast majority of them told us, which is expand it at its current location. They were given 3 options: expand at its current location, rebuild somewhere completely different, or...
But you see, get back on Cornwall Council to redevelop it. You're adding more to the finances of the council to look after it. As far as I know at the moment, it still belongs to Cornwall Council.
No,
so
the skate park has been devolved to us. We own all of the dams. There is a small strip of land between the skate park and the part of the dams that we own that is in Cornwall Council ownership. And the agreement is in place that once planning permission is given, that land is transferred to us.
Is there any possibility of having toilets in Bude?
Yeah, toilets? Obviously, that is a possibility, but I don't think conflating it with the skate park is reasonable or fair. You know, like I
think it's called a community grant that you got.
Yeah.
That's for the community.
Well, I think there was an idea floated a while ago, and I don't want to reopen old wounds, of putting toilets near the triangle, and the entire community went absolutely doolally saying no.
What about the car park up where it is now? Just move it.
Which car park are we on
Post
about?
office, by post office.
Post office car park.
That's
Yeah.
a
And
lovely-
obviously,
lovely area.
I've been sat in this seat 15 minutes and you're shooting questions at me. We can, I can't answer everything.
First,
Yeah.
the council's still fresh. I don't know how many people
Yeah.
in the council.
But a part of the neighbourhood development plan, who is somebody.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the neighbourhood development plan. I'm also very interested in the aspect of the toilets. It is something that needs sorting, because as you say, those toilets back there are not fit for purpose really. But I think part of the issue we as a council have got is we are in the situation at the moment that Cornwall Council are forcing us to take over all the running of all the toilets, all the beach toilets, everything, and not giving us much money. Not giving us much money.
But then you're only moving one toilet.
Yes, but at the moment, that toilet is a building, from what I understand, that we own, so we would have to buy another property.
The car park at the top, I think some deal could be done already, because they're thinking.
It's an idea that could be looked into.
Sorry?
It's an idea that could be looked into.
Yeah.
Okay, I got
So,
Councillor
yeah.
Richards would like to come in as well.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think you need one very close to the post office. Everybody goes to the post office. And there was one at the bottom of the foyer. And yet every single day on my little camera, which tells me what's happening at the back gate, people come along because it's closed all the time. And they do everything. But they started to notice there's a camera. So they go and do it somewhere a bit further on, but it's dreadful.
Yeah.
Why is that not open?
Well,
it belongs to, I believe.
I'm having to run my head through. That toilet has been subject to a large amount of repeated vandalism, which is why it's quite often closed.
Yeah.
And it.
Can I just say,
but it is a well-known haunt for certain activities, I believe, as well. So
I don't believe that the way you cope with vandalism is just to let it succeed. That's all.
Well, I don't think we're letting it succeed. It's a case of having the time and the budget to actually repair it and reopen it so that it's safe to use. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, if I could just add.
Yeah.
Is that right? That toilets are certainly a huge concern of this council and something that we're going to be considering really fully. And so there'll be a sort of committee that will be spending time looking at all the options. And so that's certainly something that's going to be addressed very quickly. We're going to be working on our sort of strategic vision for the next 4 years for this council. And that's something that's going to be mentioned later on the agenda as well. And I know that toilets will be something which is a real priority for this council. So I just want to reassure you that they will be considered fully.
And I'll put it on notes. The allotments of the gardens, the idea is that if you start doing a community garden, they can look after the raised gardens in the town. It'd be nice to put stuff like herbs and stuff in there, that people help themselves to it. Get children to start using it as well, teach them.
I believe Friends of the Earth already do a certain amount of this over the back of Neat side, and there's a community orchard there. And I believe that part of the edge of the Crescent car park was also planted with the idea of herbs and vegetables and things there.
Well,
so Friends of the Earth have been.
Yeah. I think the idea is to have some kind of vision on the internet, where people can put ideas to the council, and the council can respond to it, not have to turn around and come to a meeting. Much as I've enjoyed it, but
yeah.
Yeah. So just going back to the idea that I mentioned just now about doing the strategic vision for the council, there will be full public consultation around that. So it's not just going to be driven by councillors but we'll also be asking for input from the public. So you'll be hearing more and more about, what we'd like to do, and we'll be listening to what some members of the public would like to bring forward as suggestions as well. So there will definitely be you'll hear a lot more about these ideas, the bigger ideas that the community wants going forward.
Just very quickly, the facilities team that look after the toilets, they do a very good job in very difficult circumstances. And of all the staff on the council, I don't think anybody else has been threatened and bullied and accosted physically in the way that they have. So they do a really tricky job. It costs the precept payers money already. The amount of take from the car parks, the 60 grand that was going into this council from Cornwall Council, wasn't beginning to cover the costs of doing all the toilet provision. And now we're having to find an extra 60 grand on top. So although I agree that what you see is suboptimal and we wish it were better, the staff on the ground are working very hard to keep as many of the toilets open for as long as possible. And it is very soul destroying for them when they see vandalism and willful sort of causing a mess. So I would like to emphasise that the guys on the ground are doing a really good job.
Okay. Are you happy with that, or I know you're not happy.
Well, when you're a resident, you look at the toilets, visitor centre.
Yeah.
You go to the beaches, got showers and everything now. In the town, what's it for people when they come down shopping? Oh, I've got to jump in the car quick and go home to the toilet. My mum lived up here. I brought her from Newquay to look after her. We had to leave town because we couldn't take her down to disabled toilets. And that was spoiled or died.
Yeah, sure, this isn't meant to be disrespectful in any way, shape or form, but there are 3 vacant seats on the council.
No, I've done more time on.
Okay.
I'm 71 now.
I'm 63, but you like more like I'm 70.
Right, are we all happy to leave that? Oh, Councillor Jennings.
And we can do away with the toilets down somebody's beach soon, won't we? Because you won't be able to get anywhere near them because it's going to be buried in sand.
There's another problem.
Yeah. And how much does that cost? We're losing car parking money every day. We're losing money and we're spending
anyway. Yeah, that's common council money, Dorothy.
Yeah. Thank you for
okay.
what to say.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you very much. If you'd like to pop into the office to actually discuss it one-to-one with people.
I do have an email that I'm going to get back from the office.
Okay.
About BJ Day.
Okay.
It's at the end of the Second World War.
Yeah.
In Japan was the actual day that we celebrate as well.
Okay, cool.
Again, can I just say something on that very quickly?
As
Tom said, the Legion's always looking at the members, so
I was a member, Luke out here. I'll talk to you later about it.
All right.
Oh, cheers. Good night, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Right, that's the end of public participation. So we'll move on to item 7, full council to approve the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 3rd of April 2025. Yeah, opposed?
Yeah.
I'll second it. All in favour? Against? Abstain?
What's the deal?
Committees to receive and note the minutes of the committee meetings listed below. Planning Committee, the 2nd, 16th and 30th of April 2025.
Propose we note on block.
Okay, all in favour? Against? Abstain? Corporate and Democratic Services Committee, 17th of April 2025. Seconded, all in favour? Against? Abstain? Okay, item 8. To approve the finance reports, schedule of payments made 17th of April 25 to 12th of May 25. Proposed? Seconded? Right, all in favour? Against? Abstained? Schedule of payments to be made from 13th of May 2025. Opposed? Seconded? All in favour? Against? Abstained? C, to consider any potential conflict of interest with the external auditor, BDO LLP, and to approve any associated actions.
Excuse me, Chair. What is BDO?
I believe it's the company's
abbreviated name of the company.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
just mention this to you, sorry, the other evening we met, and to explain what the purpose of the agenda item, and we're not aware of any conflicts at all. So those, some we agree there's.
There was no conflicts are noted.
Seconded? Yeah. Okay, all in favour? Against? Abstain? Excellent. Item 9, opportunity for Cornwall councillors to introduce themselves to the Town Council and to discuss Cornwall Council issues relevant to the Town Council.
Thank you and congratulations on your appointment. Mayorship, thank you. I would also like to give thanks to all previous councillors who sat on the table for the previous 4 years, and the officers, and of course members of the public who attend meetings. The members of the public who attend our meetings, you may end up around our table sooner rather than later if you're not careful. Please consider it. I also want to pay tribute to all the fellow candidates, Kevin and Jude, Tom, who stood in Poundstock. Obviously weren't successful on this occasion, but that's what makes politics great, and that's what gives us democracy, people that are prepared to put their hand forward. It's flipping hard work standing as a candidate. I logged 156 miles walking, delivering leaflets in April. I bet Kevin probably did a bit more. I bet Tom probably equalled me. So thank you both of you. Cornwall Council has not yet met as a formal body because we don't yet have an administration. There was no clear winner of the election. It's looking like it's going to be a hung administration. I wouldn't want to predict at this point where we're going to end up with, but it will be some form of coalition that we end up. I mean, I hope, if I possibly can, to play my part in that administration and represent Bude and North Cornwall as strong as I possibly can. I want to touch very quickly on the number 12 bus. I was horrified to be in a meeting just before the election where we were told that the number 12 bus was going to be split into 3 different legs rather than the direct route between Bude and Plymouth. I did my absolute best, but it fell on deaf ears. The administration was completely intransigent. They didn't want to hear. They told me subsidising the service between what they've put into place now compared to the service that we had before was somewhere in the region of £200,000, and they said they couldn't find the money to support that. But I did note that yesterday or today, Go Cornwall have announced £32 million spent on electric buses, and I think that maybe the resources would have been better spent actually making sure there's a decent provision for all of Cornwall rather than the great provision for a very few people. As Councillor Chopak said, we've already had meetings to position ourselves on where we all stand as a group of councillors in this area on this. We've met with the MP as well. We're awaiting confirmation from the Managing Director of Go Cornwall to meet with us. At the minute, it's looking like it's going to be sometime in early June. It will be a meeting just between councillors, possibly the MP and Go Cornwall Bus and Cornwall Council officers, to see if we can revert the bus at least back to where it was, or at least reintroduce some direct services, because the cost will have tripled, because you have to change into 3 separate services rather than £3 for a direct trip, which is the cap on an individual bus journey. You now have to have 3 individual journeys, which means instead of £3 there and £3 back, it's £9 there and £9 back, which will make a difference to people who are going to hospital, for example, that now are probably going to struggle, like Councillor Jennings actually did have that direct experience of. We didn't get there. Let me finish. I continue to be very interested in what's going on with the canal embankment repairs. If there aren't men on site now already, or workers on site now already,
repairing the walkway which leads down to Summerlings Beach. They will be this week. I was promised that a couple of weeks ago. And I'm also aware that the repairs that were done to the breakwater are beginning to break up and fail, and I've been assured that they will be put right ASAP. Going forward, I'm really keen, and I have said this before, that we get a proper in-depth engineering survey of the breakwater so we properly understand what the structure is, where any problems are with it, and that will enable us to then get them properly funded so we actually get that first line of defence properly looked after and regulated and understood that we're doing exactly what we need to do to it. In the hours since I was re-elected as Cornwall Councillor, I've already helped and been working with 2 young families being made homeless and 1 individual young person being made homeless, and that is just horrendous in my book. I've reported on it before, and I'll continue to do everything that's within my power to help those people. We have our full council meeting coming up on the 20th of May, and at that meeting, which is not tomorrow, or it's a week tomorrow, we'll know what the administration is and what it's going to look like, and I'll report back to all councillors around the table very quickly what transpires from that meeting. So finally, I just want to say to Mr. Gannon, Connect Bude, I think you should be around the table as soon as we possibly can get you in terms of what we're talking about with the bus connections. I want to speak very briefly on what Mr. Barrett said about the climate change issues. And my reading of knocking on doors and speaking to people in the pre-election phase was that I think people are fed up seeing sums of money being spent on what's loosely termed as education, and what they actually want is practical and proportionate and in-time actions to help protect us against climate change. I don't think there are many climate change deniers, but what people want is sensible actions. I think that's it. Thank you. Happy to take questions if necessary.
Let's start off about the buses first. What exactly has Cornwall Council got to do with that? Because when I kicked off at the bloke on the phone when I was in Callington, he said, well, we got to sort it out with Cornwall Council. So who's actually running the bus service?
Right, it's a combination of Go Cornwall and Cornwall Council. So how it works is very few bus services actually are profitable. They don't get enough passengers on. Right, so what happens then is Cornwall Council will subsidise the bus services that it wants to have in place. So that's why you have what I often see as a disproportionate investment in the easy wins. So if you're in the southwest of Cornwall, where you've got easy access to the A30, it's very easy to design public transport to work because it all links into the A30 and it comes up that spine, links up onto Exeter. If you're in North Cornwall, where we are now, it's actually very difficult to do public transport. And one of the conversations that I did have in that meeting that I described was that I think we need to throw away the rule book and start thinking again about how we deliver public transport. And I have asked if we can seriously look at just completely a fresh book on how we do public transport in this area, because I think there might be better ways of doing it than relying on the way that we've done it for the last 80 or 100 years or so.
I mean, the way of doing it now is just no common sense. They spin it now 1, 2, 3 buses, but you're not guaranteed. It's not a guaranteed connection. I was at an appointment at Derriford. I worked it all out so I could get there, and then you get to Callington. Oh, the bus is already gone. So I had to catch a bus back again, and I've got to get down there now in June. It's going to be the same thing again, to get to Callington and see what happens. But, I mean, it's supposed to be a public service. And the only people that they don't look after are the public. You know, it's run by people that never use buses and ain't got a clue.
I wouldn't go that far, but I agree with most of your
I
sentiment.
certainly would. I mean, what is the point of saying you get on the bus in Bude and I'll go somewhere and all of a sudden the other bus is gone?
Right, we'll go to Kevin and then Vicky.
Just a couple of things. Obviously, formally congratulate Peter again on being elected to Cornwall Council. But moving on to the buses, my understanding is that you can do the trip on one ticket, but you have to ask for it. If anybody is a bus user, you have to ask for a kind of like a day roaming ticket, and that will actually save you a few quid if you have to do all this trip. As Chair of Age Concern is viewed, we're already getting people contacting us saying that they can't get to Darriford. Darriford was already really hard, but now it's become effectively impossible to get to Darriford for anything. And the other point I make on buses is there might have been a period in the last sort of 50 odd years that there hasn't been a direct service to Plymouth, but I don't know when that was, because as a kid, we had the Jennings bus to Plymouth, which was a direct service, then a Hookways bus to Plymouth, and then various iterations. And without sort of, telling anybody their negotiating position, I think at least some direct services to Plymouth would be more useful than a number of indirect services where you have to make a couple of changes. So to me, if the same is being made, it should be in the number of times the bus goes, but then when the bus does go, it goes direct.
Just a very quick one. I was reading a report that there's workers at Truro Hospital who can't get there because the bus no longer visits their village. They have to rely on friends to give them lifts, so they end up late for work. So, yes, we are affected the worst.
I'd love to sit down with the bloke that does the timetable, because he really hasn't got ends of sense.
No,
I caught the bus from Bude to go to Padstow. The bus gets to Weybridge at 1:05, and the Padstow bus leaves at 1 minute past 1.
I have heard from my mum about your trip to Oldhampton train station.
Yeah, that was another prize effort, wasn't it?
Apparently that was quite legendary as well, because she was stuck with you.
Yeah.
That would be legendary.
Sorry, I've lost track of it. I think it was Tom, and then we'll go across.
Yeah, just same question as addressed to Councillor Chopak earlier about Ben Maguire says blatant corruption. If you remember when we were asked to consider the consultation on strengthening strengthening the standards and conduct framework for local authorities in England, we were very strongly encouraged to go, to approve, give our support to more stringent, sanctions. And at the time, I raised concerns, if you remember, about the transparency of the process of the assessment. And Ben Maguire is certainly raising concerns about the monitoring officer. Do you agree that there are concerns in relation to matters?
So, Councillor O'Sullivan, you're talking specifically about the appointment of previous councillor Louis Gardner to his appointment at an executive position of the Spaceport.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about the concerns raised by RMP Ben Maguire about specifically the monitoring officer, and because these are concerns I raised previously, not as forcefully, I have to say, but the concerns have been. I have raised concerns about the monitoring office in relation to how code of conduct complaints are, for example, are assessed. The lack of transparency. He says there's blatant corruption. I'm saying there's a lack of transparency. Do you agree with either?
At the risk of sounding dull, I'm not sure I absolutely understand your question, and I don't want to agree with you. I think it's possible I might agree with you, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what the nub of your question is.
Right. Can I come in here? Suggest that you have this conversation outside of this table because time is pressing, and the agenda item was to discuss formal council issues, whether it's the town council. You've now bumped it up to MP level, and yes, I can see there is a tenuous link to us, but at the same time, I would like to.
Yeah. Okay. It's just that I think it is concerning actually, and we could make time for this because there was a working group appointed to look into this, but never met. As far as I know, I was supposed to be on that working group. The working group never met.
Are you the chair of that working group, any chance?
But it wasn't a chair appointed, I don't think.
Maybe can I suggest you send an email out to the councillors in that working group and set the work?
It's too late now. It's too late now because we've long passed the date for submitting a response.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't want to shut you down completely, but I do want to move the meeting on a bit. So we're going to flip item 10 and 11 around for reasons that the clerk will explain later. So we're going to move to item 11 first, committee membership to elect the voting members of the following committees of the council. So I believe you have a list of people's preferences.
I have a list of preferences. So thank you everyone who submitted their requests. Unfortunately, we couldn't accommodate everybody. We did do our best. So yeah, these are the requests. So I'll read out, I'll do them one at a time and we'll see if we're all happy with them or if we need to make some adjustments. So the current membership of Corporate and Democratic Services Committee are the following councillors. So councillors Alsbury Hawkins, Colwell, Herbert Coulson, LeBroy, Moores, O'Sullivan, Petherick, Chris Turner and Pat Richards. So there were Councillor Gibson Toolsey also wanted to be on that committee, but there was only room for 9, and it was on the first come first served sort of basis. So is everybody who I mentioned just now still wishing to be on the committee? Or yeah, okay. I mean the other. So as we work through, we'll see if there's anybody who's very dissatisfied. There are other ways of looking at this as well, because I have just been calculating the fact that some councillors are on several committees and some on fewer. So in terms of fairness, it might be that we can take that information into account as well. It's quite a complex sort of matrix to work out, but I've got that information for you. So we're happy with the C&D committee.
My question. So I was just going to say, I don't think it was advertised as a first come, first serve basis. I mean, normally people put their hands, you vote on this, a bit like we did with the chairman and vice chair.
Yeah, no, that is true. And yeah, that wasn't explicitly made clear, I have to say. Well, this is the thing. It depends on who really wants to be where, you see. So yeah, so if you look here, so for example, on this one, so people who didn't manage to get on this basis were basically Tony and Paul. Tony is on 2 other committees currently, and Paul is also on 2. So I mean, what we might want to do is work all the way through. Are you two happy with that, or? I mean, the trouble is we don't know which ones are on.
No. Until you go through the whole list, we have no idea.
Go through the whole thing, and we can, and if you, and then we can make the final adjustments before we actually go through it. Okay. Yeah. Right. So next one is Facilities and Environmental Services, and the ones who are currently the lucky members are councillors Alsbury Hawkins, Colwell, LeBroy, Moores, O'Sullivan, Petherick, Chris Turner, Francis Richards and Pat Richards. So the 2 who didn't get onto that were councillors Herbert Coulson and Councillor Tilsey. Okay, does that make sense? Right, so moving on to Cultural and Heritage Services. We actually have a vacancy on this one. So everyone who wants to be on it is on it. So that is councillors Alsbury Hawkins, Colwell, Gibbs, Herbert Coulson, LeBroy, Chris Turner, Pat Richards and Tilsey. And I'll say one vacancy. So that's kind of the easy one if you like. And then we come to planning. There's been a little bit of confusion on the numbers on there. So actually there it's we have 9 people on there, and those are councillors Gibbs, Jennings, Herbert Coulson, LeBroy, O'Sullivan, Petherick, Francis Richards, Pat Richards and Tilsey. And there's nobody else who wanted to be on who didn't manage to get on. So basically that one is also a contested committee.
Says here,
6.
planning committee, only 6 voting members?
Yeah, as I just said at the beginning of this particular one, that should have actually been 9. There was some discussion about it being 6 at one point, but actually there has been a difficulty with planning because we haven't always been able to, there haven't always been enough people able to attend the meeting in order to have a quorum. So when we've had 9 and a lot of people haven't attended, that's caused us problems. So there's some discussion as to whether that should be 6. But in the mix of everything and sorting that, we can now put it back to 9. So we're back to square one.
Sorry, I don't recall any meeting that we couldn't hold because of lack of quality.
Well, no, I think the problem is that we're very close to being in quorum several times, and quite often Tracy's had to phone around everybody to make sure that they could attend. You may not be aware of that, but that's something, isn't it? So every planning meeting, so are we going to be quorum or aren't we? So it's been a bit tight and difficult from an admin point of view.
Well, I'm pleased to see that it's back at 9 because surely it's easier to get a minimum of 3 from 9 than it is from 6.
I just think part of the issue trying to get people on planning is 1, the commitment, because it's every other week. 2, it is quite a public profile. And 3, knowledge.
Yes.
I think those 3 things actually put quite a few people off.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
And I would say that training is something that really is required for that committee. But it's the people who are keen, committed, prepared to be trained, and we have enough, then that's absolutely great. That's what we need.
As I said, it's great to be back on planning. I enjoy being on the planning committee, but I'm going to be able to do 3 o'clock.
So you what?
I can't do 3.
Right, I think that's why we flipped 10 and 11 round, so we can talk about the scheduling. Am I reading your mind correctly? Right, so planning's fine,
okay.
CNH is fine, so it's just C&D and...
Yeah, so if I can, we haven't mentioned staffing yet. So, so the number of people on this is 5. So the people currently on, given their ex officio roles, are Councillor Dorr and Herbert Coulson, and then there's also Councillors Colwell, LeBroy and Moores. Can I just check with Councillor Herbert Coulson if you definitely want to be on staffing? It's not actually a requirement. Yeah. You do. So those are those ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just point out that according to our current standing orders and our current terms of reference for committees, the number of voting members on the staffing committee is 9. But our current standing orders, the standing orders that we are currently operating, and it says 9.
Yeah, okay, so
he's correct.
Yes, yeah. So as we speak, that is the situation. However, we're in a minute going to look at the new standing orders that are proposed, and the proposal is to change the number from 9 to 5 because 9 is rather a lot of members in terms of proportion of the council, and for most councils the practice is to keep the staffing committee as small as possible, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is because if in the event of a sort of disciplinary situation where you're having to have panels, you have a sort of panel to consider an issue, and then you may need to have an appeal panel. You might end up running out of people, if you see what I mean. And also, I consider it a little bit inappropriate to have quite so many councillors aware of rather confidential information relating to members of staff. So it's generally considered better practice to keep that as a smaller committee, which is why we are proposing changes to standards.
Yeah, but all I would say is that surely these are details that could have and should have been discussed at the working group, I wasn't present at any meeting where these details were discussed. Surely the appropriate place to discuss them is, if you have a working group, to just where you can discuss these matters. Also, I mean, if we now go for 5, we're preempting a decision on item 14.
Tony, sorry, have you got your, is that pen in the hour hand up or not?
No.
No, okay, Tony.
It was only a question of clarification, because you just clarified for me when you said it's ex officio and you name the individuals, but my understanding is if it's the chairs of the various committees, we don't know who they are yet. So even though you've named them, we don't have any committees and all chairs.
No, it's staffing committees.
No, but the other ex officio, so it was Peter Laws, Peter the boy, and one other.
No.
Well, that was the names you said.
Oh, no, that's a coincidence. Those, no, that's based on preferences on that sheet. That isn't.
Yes, officios and mayor and executive mayor.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. I thought everybody was ex officio, sorry. Okay. Yeah,
The only other thing is, that would be 9 if we wanted to take these people, so then we could then meet and we could go from there.
I've heard it stands, first standing orders are 9, so I don't think we've got any other option but to go with what standing orders say.
So if I could say, the people who had requested to go on the staff committee, who I haven't just named because the preference form came in after the people I have named, were councillors Patrick O'Sullivan, Herbert Coulson, and Gibbs. So basically, okay, so the full complement of members currently is 8 of 9, and those are councillors Dorr, Herbert Coulson, Colwell, LeBroy, Moores, Petherick, O'Sullivan and Gibbs. So
I thought I put my name down for this.
yes, indeed, it's on that. Yeah.
It's just that I spent all my working life with for between looking after.
That's an admin error. So yes, apologies, Councillor Richards. And Councillor Francis Richards.
Okay, so that's 9. Tony?
Sorry, yeah. It's just, again, it's just clarification on what I understand, because if what I'm confused about now is that we were asked what our preferences were, but actually the way it's been worked out is first come, first served. So it feels like preferences were pointless. So, for instance, my first preference was for planning, which I didn't get on. For staffing, which I didn't get on. And my 5th preference was planning, which I did get on.
You're on staffing.
Yeah, well, only because we've got the 9. If it ends up being 6, I won't. So there's no point asking for preferences if in the end it was first come, first served, because it seems that that's really what the priority is. So that should have been made clear at the point when we were applying, because we didn't know that. We weren't told that, and it wasn't indicated on the form either, because I would have approached it differently. I didn't put it in until today because I didn't realise it was first come, first served. So in the end, I've not ended up with the preferences I wanted on the basis it's first come, first served.
Right, yeah.
Okay, my apologies, Councillor. So just in terms of, yes, you are now.
I appreciate it, but as we said.
Yeah, okay. So that's 3 come filled.
Yeah.
And then there's the other 2 where we've got some people who.
Right, so C and D, Tony and Paul miss out. Are you happy to miss out that because you're on 3 others?
On the basis, just get on with it.
Yeah.
Got it, but yes.
Got it.
Carry on.
Right, that's fine. F&E, Vicky and Paul again. Happy to miss out?
Yeah.
Fine. Miss out? Okay, fine. That's 9 and everything.
Can I just make one other?
Tom, sorry.
Can I just make one other comment about committees, etc., in relation to standing orders? One of the things I would have liked to have had the opportunity to discuss at the working group was that occasionally you'll have councillors who are not members of the committee turn up and have a situation where if a councillor turns up and there is a space that somebody else hasn't turned up, they could step in. It would address the issue of quorum, which causes difficulty at times, but it is an option that could be considered.
Yeah, I would suggest maybe that should be considered by the individual working group, depending on the issue.
Well, yes, but it could have been included in.
Which working group are you referring to at the moment?
So no, I mean committees.
All right.
Sorry, the working group was the standing orders working group.
Right. Okay.
I would have liked to have had the opportunity at that working group to discuss possibilities like this, but the opportunity wasn't.
Okay. Well, that's maybe something we can address in the future in working groups. Yeah. Okay. Right. So back to these committees. Is everybody happy with their positions in the committees? They know where they are. Okay. So then
Was we emailed out just to clarify some more?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you like me to run through the?
No.
Okay. Correct answer. In that case, I'm going to propose that we elect Councillor Jennings. Please keep this short and relevant.
It's the first I've heard about. Nobody asked me about anything of this.
That's because you were in the Ben Coolen drinking the other night.
That's because this council decided to do something rather than go pay their respects to the
I know,
government.
but we weren't all through it.
Hey, I did both. You can't.
Moving on, Chair.
Right, moving on. Is there any committees you want to be in?
Planning.
You were on planning, Councillor Jennings.
Also, one more thing. We still have a vacancy on culture and heritage.
Councillor Jennings, would you like
Culture.
Culture and heritage.
I don't think so.
You do heritage. Right, I'm going to propose that we elect en masse everybody into those committees. Can I get a seconder? Good. All in favour? Excellent. Against? Abstain? Yes. And now we will to agree the schedule of meetings. Undoubtedly, somebody's going to ask about planning moving to 6 o'clock, so I'll preempt that by why is planning moving to 6 o'clock.
Would you like to explain how to do that?
Yeah, part of the reason for the discussion in the office about changing the planning meeting, there's a couple of difficulties there. There's partly to try and change it to the evening because we thought we might get more members, but obviously that we've got mine now. But also, because we've got the bank hub in room 4, it's taken up a lot of the room. So there are September, October, November, we have no room to hold the planning meeting in the afternoon on a Wednesday. So we would have to change it to some other day or a different time on those days because we haven't got any room available. Because the regular users are using all the rooms in the Parkhead Centre. Part of the reason we discussed moving it to the evening slot was because we thought we might get more people, but obviously it's fine as it is. We can move to a Tuesday in the afternoon. It would mean moving around into different rooms on various occasions. But we have looked at it today, and we can do Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or we can do evenings on a Wednesday. Wednesday afternoons are going to be difficult in some months because we haven't got a room.
Would it be possible to leave this to the planning committee because we're running at 3 o'clock, from what I understand, until September?
Yeah.
And for the planning committee to look at it.
I could bring all the details to the committee. There was no thought on our part to try and force anything on it. We were just trying to make it work.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Again, it's just a point of clarification. Being back to the council, I'm surprised to hear that the town council, in its own council chambers, doesn't have the room to run a council meeting.
The bank and hub are only here temporarily.
No, this is the council chamber. So therefore, surely council meetings must have priority in the council chamber. I appreciate the fact that we need to make money, I get it, but the primary function of the council is to run council meetings. So therefore, the priority for this space surely must be council meetings. I'm really surprised.
I don't disagree, but we've got regular users that we've had to move around on a temporary basis. They've been coming here for years.
I understand that, but previously, and again, I've only not been on the council for 3 years, this council chamber was always available for all council meetings. I don't recall ever not running a planning meeting in this room. So this is something that's happened relatively recently, it seems. And I appreciate the fact you've gone through a process. I get it. But equally, if we're, as a council, whose primary job is to run these meetings, we're struggling to run a meeting because we don't have in the room in a building of this size. I am slightly surprised about that, I have to say.
Yeah, just to reinforce what Tracy was saying is that this is a temporary situation, and it's because of this unusual situation with the banking hub in room 4. So that has meant that there's that hirers of room 4, who are now long-standing sort of customers of ours, if you like, would be without a space. So we are trying to juggle things just for a few months to do that. So hence we've got a little bit of a little bit of difficulty in the short term, but it's not going to last very long.
If we're going to have 9 on the planning committee, and we're not starting the meeting till 6 o'clock, we're going to be here till about 12 o'clock. I mean, sometimes we're 4 of us here, we've been here till nearly 5 o'clock. If we've got 9 people to speak and all the people are coming up, we could be here till well late, starting at 6.
No. Would make sense. Yeah, I would thought, yeah.
No, it is. It isn't. It's insane.
Well, I'll speak one of the chat.
Right. Just
Just to you, the chair, if it moves to 6 o'clock, I will have to withdraw.
Can I suggest we pick up on Vicky's earlier suggestion that it comes to the planning meeting at the first meeting? And to be quite honest, I think there's a fair degree of concern about having a banking hub in Bude, and we need as a council to look after that as well. I'm new to this. I personally don't care which room I'm in when I'm in a meeting, because it's what happens in a room as opposed to what is the room, if that makes sense. So I think it should come to the planning committee to discuss.
I agree personally. Obviously I missed a small part of the meeting, but
I will gather all the information I can possibly gather and bring it to the planning meeting.
so set the first planning meeting up for the same day at 3 p.m. And yeah, everyone happy with that? Yeah. So everybody happy with the rest of the meeting schedules? Okay, I propose we agree then. Second, all in favour? Against? Abstained? Cool. Item 12, appointment to members of outside bodies. Before we sign through this, I think we should add Connect Bude as an outside body that we appoint a member to. It's not listed on there, but if anybody would like to do that. I'm looking at you, Councillor Jennings.
You can keep looking, Michael.
You said you've got to talk to the man. This is your way to do it.
What man?
Boss man.
Will he in here?
No, we appoint you to the Connect Bude outside body.
Right. When he's coming, give me a shout.
Right, Tony.
Again, it's just a point of clarification for there was something I spoke to the previous mayor about in relation to the town team in particular, and I think you were there, Mike, actually, at the meeting where we were talking about representation from town council in these various bodies and understanding what they meant from the body that the councillors are turning up on.
Yeah.
And I've experienced this personally, where I'm not fully aware, as the chair of the town team, why the town councillor was on that particular meeting. It wasn't made clear why that was and what they were actually doing, who they were representing and the way they were doing it. The Mayor and I discussed that, and we spoke more about really these appointments as town councillors being delegates on these various bodies. And whilst that might sound like it's trite, it's actually quite important, because there's a big difference between being a delegate and a member in relation to the responsibility to the town council of that individual back to the council, and their responsibility to the body that they're attending. Because what was evident, and again, I had to make a complaint because the town team were not being represented appropriately to the town council, and that complaint was upheld.
I remember.
And so it is really important that if town council is going to turn up at meetings, they're going for the right reasons, and what they're doing is reporting back appropriately. And there has to be very tight terms of reference in relation to what that is. Because what I've experienced personally in the past is that individuals that are returning back to town council meetings at which there are no representatives in these individual boards and then spinning their own version of it. And that means that the town council are not actually getting the truth. So these positions are really important, but they need to be closely regulated.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair comment, and I think that we can look, might I say the words, Bude Climate Partnership. We had members on the Bude Climate Partnership, and we didn't get the full chapter and verse around this table that we should have done.
To be honest, they never told us anything.
No, there was so when you go onto these bodies, you need to be fully aware of the terms of reference and who you're responsible to. And I would suggest that you're responsible to the people of Bude via this council. So whatever is said in those meetings gets repeated back to the people around this table, even if it means that we have to go into closed session to hear it.
Go, Tom, Tony.
Well, I'm glad that Councillor Colvin mentioned this, because I noticed that we appointed councillors to one of the outside bodies 12 months ago was the Bude Climate Partnership, but they're not on the list this time. Yeah, but we can still have appoint a member to it as an outside body.
They don't exist.
Yes.
You've got a partnership.
Yeah, Bude Climate Partnership.
So I'm through where something's been withdrawn and that's now in the process of being wound up.
No, this is separate completely. Regardless of the partnership arrangement, Bude Climate Partnership itself, we appointed members to the as an outside body. It was considered an outside body, and we appointed members.
Yeah, it was Councillor Hannah and Purchase.
Yeah, so why can't we appoint?
Because they don't exist anymore.
I think they still exist. The partnership doesn't exist, but
I just to support Councillor O'Sullivan, and perhaps this is a question I could ask the clerks for yourself. Is the Climate Partnership Board still likely to have any further meetings?
Not that I'm aware of. We're in the final couple of weeks of winding things down. So I don't think there's any further decision making to take that.
So to be fair, I think this comes back to a broader point that I fired off several emails about prior to the elections in that an official announcement has still not been made, and it's quite obvious there's people around this table that don't know what's going on.
can I just clarify? The issue that has been raised, but if you don't support whatever your climate change scenario, I'm not climate change scenario. I think the council needs to rebuild a relationship with the Bude Climate Partnership.
Tom, did you listen to what I said previously?
What was that?
They don't exist. They're under.
Right, okay.
Are you trying to appoint somebody to an organisation that...
No, I thought you said that the partnership arrangement between this council didn't exist. You're saying the Bude Climate.
Yeah, I've blurted it out and probably shouldn't have, but...
Well, this is the trouble with not.
Yeah, that's why an official announcement needs to be made, and I have just nudged the clerk.
Yeah, and I didn't know that when I asked my question, so my apologies.
Tony, sorry.
Just two things then. One, just leaving, I suppose climate partnership would be helpful. No, that wasn't the topic. But is it possible that we can write, as a council, formally to the board of the climate partnership to make an announcement? I don't see it as being, this council, as far as I'm aware, voted to dissolve itself from that partnership last year. So we've effectively, as a council, not been part of that partnership for at least 6 months. So I don't see why that this town council has to then take the responsibility for making any form of announcement. The climate partnership have got a management team and they've also got a board. And I believe that they are fully capable, as the owners of the money, that et cetera, and the management team, I believe they have a responsibility to the people of Bude to explain what's gone on. I don't see it as being part of this council.
I agree entirely.
So can I suggest that what we do is write formally as a council to the management team of the climate partnership, whoever that is, the board, no matter what, and ask them to make a formal statement. Now we can do that on their behalf, but I don't see it as being our responsibility.
Yeah, so it sounded good.
Yeah.
So, I think we're not really, we're going slightly off the agenda items.
Yeah,
here,
sorry,
but,
that wasn't.
also, I'd like to say the situation regarding public statements in relation to this initiative is quite sensitive, given the fact that there are members of the community who are employed by the organisation at the moment and are working out their redundancies as we speak. So we are trying to be conscious of that and to manage any statements very carefully. I have been in conversation with the lottery and their communications team. There's also been the period of PERDA in the lead up to the election when no announcements could be made by anybody. And so things have been put very much on hold and have not been taken further, given that the election's only just taken place. So we are in that position at the moment, trying to be mindful of the situation of individuals in our community, and given that it's been a rather difficult period. So that's all I really want to say at the moment.
Right, going back to the actual agenda.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, you're going to have to help. I'm going to ask questions because I'm just trying to clarify in my own mind what all of this stuff means. So appointment of members of outside bodies. But my question is, I suppose, really for these outside bodies, and I know that we've always done it historically. I think it's had town council membership of these bodies. But would it not be, I don't know what the word is really, precedent probably, to actually ask if any of these bodies want a town councillor on them? Because we're sort of imposing ourselves on these bodies. We don't have a right to be on them. I would have thought that perhaps in the past, the way this has worked out is maybe each of these bodies have asked whether a councillor would like to attend. I think at the moment we're assuming that every one of these bodies would, and actually it comes back to my original point.
Yeah, I get your point.
On it in the first place.
Yeah, I get your point.
Very simply, I think Peter Morse might agree, most of these have occurred because members of the council would like them to be represented because they're on those particular groups themselves. So it's come from the council, and it's not come from outside, it's come from inside out.
It doesn't feel right.
It doesn't, it's not right.
There's lots of others out there. We defer this item.
Anyway,
we contact each one of these organisations and ask would they like town council representation on them, and we bring this item back to next month's meeting. Yeah, I know there's a few there. Okay. Right, that's 2 ticked off. Did somebody second my proposal? Seconded, all in favour?
Bless you.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Right. So we'll contact the rest, we'll bring it back, we'll assign people to those who want it. Yeah. Page 2. General powers of competence. Confirm the criteria have been met and resolve to adopt general powers of competence for 25 to 29 plan of the town council. We've definitely met.
We meet the criteria.
Yes, we have.
I think we have to do it.
I propose that we do so in accordance with the agenda item.
I second it. All in favour? We reach the shotgun section of the agenda. Against? Abstain? Okay. Standing orders and financial regulations. To approve and adopt the revised standing orders, financial regulations and scheme of delegation.
Could I sort of say that it appears that on the revised standing orders, there's still some issues. Is it possible to approve and adopt the financial regulations and the scheme of delegation and put the approved standing orders on hold?
We could defer the standing orders, put it into a small working group, and bring it back. Okay.
There was a fair bit of work done on this in the previous council. I know that Councillor O'Sullivan feels slightly unsatisfied about the process, but I don't see any reason why we can't accept these standing orders and financial regs as they are, but subject to further review. So we can have another working group and put right the stuff that anybody else might be concerned about. But I think we ought to have an up-to-date working set of standing orders and financial regulations as best as can be, even accepting there might be flaws.
Is that a proposal?
Yes.
Kevin?
What I was going to say is I thought it was standard practice that we revisit these things anyway. So by accepting them now doesn't mean to say this is how it is forever. We just have this updated and then we can improve upon them in a later date.
Second. Well, there's several details that you only find out about if you read these in detail. For example, why has neighbourhood development planning been moved from planning committee to corporate and democratic? And again, I would just make the point, I'm sorry to labour it, but it was not discussed by the working group.
Okay, we've got a proposal unseconded. Would you like to make an amendment to the proposal before we make a vote on it?
Well, I propose I accept the point. What I propose that we defer defer, because I accept these are our.
I'm not sure. The proposal is to accept it. I don't think an amendment to defer it.
It doesn't negate it's deferring decision, because of course the one point I would make is that there is nothing wrong with, for example, we're given a choice, this version or we stick with what we get. There's nothing wrong with a councillor themselves drawing up a version and saying, giving a choice. There's one choice, there's another choice. But my disappointment is that we had set up a working group. As far as I can recall, we only had one meeting that discussed standing orders, and so the rest was not. This is not a document that was drawn up by the working group.
Who else was in that? So I'll come to you in a second, John. Who else was in the working group? Would you agree with Tom's assessment, all three of you?
My recollection, I definitely remember one.
I'll come to two, sorry.
I can clarify that, just to say, because I remember myself attending two, just one was in the office and one I attended online. That's one thing, and the neighbourhood development plan falls within the terms of reference to the Corporate Democratic Services Committee. That's why it's in there. So I think a lot of conversation has taken place. I'm happy to continue to review it, obviously.
Whilst not wanting to negate it, I'm afraid there's a new council, this is previous council business, which I have no knowledge. So you're talking about things I have absolutely no knowledge of, and whether you had these meetings or not, to me personally, I don't care, because this is a new council. What I'm being asked to do is approve the only set of standing orders that I've been presented with. It's not an either or, they're the only ones I've seen. Yeah. So if you're suggesting that we don't accept those, well, I haven't seen any other set of standing orders, so what do I do? So this is a new council with a new set of rules in front of us now, yeah. and it seems to me we've taken or leave it. But
Well, obviously, if we leave it, we would continue to operate on our current standing order.
Which is fine, but I agree, but they're not what I've been presented with. I wasn't given both. I was only given the amended version. So unless I've been prepared to go on the website and look at the old ones myself, I've only actually been presented with one step. So you see what I mean? Does that make sense?
I understand your point, yes. Tracy.
Can I explain these standing orders? These standing orders are taken from the NALC standing orders that are taken from all over the country. The old standing orders from the previous council, there is nothing in those that are not in these. And I can point to every single standing order from the old one, which is in these. The only difference between these and the old ones is these have been put into a good order, whereas the other ones were all over the place. There was duplicated bits in them, there was numbering that was wrong, etc., etc. The new ones have got things that have been taken out of bold as put down by now. There's nothing really much different in these than one of the other ones, apart from the ordering and the layout.
Sorry, Peter, then Tony.
I just, having been part of that working group, I want to try and give the council some sense of reassurance, because the standing orders had been rewritten by members of the previous councils that aligned themselves to a particular group, and there was a lot of anomalous stuff within them, and I thought that the working group did a fairly good job of actually getting it much closer in terms of its adherence to the National Association of Local Councils model standing orders, with a little bit of adjustment to what we wanted. I take on board the points that Councillor O'Sullivan is making, but I think what we've got on offer to us to accept today is far better than the previous, and I wouldn't want us to miss that opportunity, but I also wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to further improve on them, as we should do, and as Councillor O'Sullivan rightly points out.
Yes, and hopefully I'm sort of making that, I'll try and make that clear. I think from my perspective, I'm perfectly content with what we've been presented with.
Okay.
Well, what I'm concerned about is we end up in this position where we don't accept these, and then as a new councillor, I'm being asked to accept something I haven't actually looked at.
We've got a proposal to accept.
Yeah, I agree.
I gave Tom a chance to amend the proposal.
Can I suggest that if they are accepted, a rider is that there is a formal review in the next 2 months?
That's exactly the kind of amendment I was looking for, yes.
And then that will give people the
opportunity. Peter, it's your proposal, are you happy to accept that as an amendment? Yep. Okay, so we're voting to accept them as is, with a formal review to start within the next few months. Everybody understand what we're voting on? Yeah. All in favour? Against? Abstain? Bank mandate to authorise new signatories to the council's bank accounts. How many signatories do we need? 2. Could we have 2 volunteers to be bank signatories?
I'm happy to carry on.
Oh, I am actually. Is it 2 new ones or 2 in total?
We need 6. Oh, we need 6.
6, all right, so I'll carry on. Any other volunteers?
I live close if you have to call them. What's this finger?
Right, 1, 2, Councillor Cousy, Councillor Coulson, Moores, Caldwell, is that 6? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Just read that again, Master.
So, me, Peter LeBroy, Paul Cousy, Councillor Caldwell, Peter Moores, Heather Wilson. We need to vote on that? Right, I propose we elect those 6 bank secretaries. Seconded, all in favour? Against? Abstain? Internal control statement to approve and adopt a revised internal control statement.
No one we got.
We got a copy of that? It was in the pack.
I think as far as reading that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And make that happen.
I think I changed that.
Yes, quite.
No, not this one.
Right. Does anybody want to propose that? Yeah, seconded. Okay, all in favour? Against? Abstain?
I'll abstain for the.
To appoint a councillor to undertake internal control duties.
What does that mean?
And this can't be one of the 6 signatories. So the remainder of you, we need a volunteer. Councillor Gibbs, anybody else? Okay, I propose Councillor Gibbs.
I'll second that.
All in favour? Before it changes his mind. Risk registers. To approve and adopt a revised general risk register and financial risk policy.
I read this with interest and it's absolutely fine where it is. My question is, it's very generic in approach. And if in my corporate life, were looking at a risk register, there would be other things which are at risk of impacting on the council. An example of this would be Lord's Court, of which there's no mention in that risk register. People have talked to me about it, and this morning I went out and spent some time with the person who leases the shop, runs the shop, etc. And it seems to me that, and I'm only use this as an example, there are a number of risks for the council, from commercial to reputational, to social stroke community, to potentially legal. And if we're looking at a risk register for things that are impacting on the council, my belief is that we should be looking at these things. There will be other risks as well. In my experience, I would be using a risk register as part of the forward budgeting, forward awareness type issues. And so I would be suggesting, let me be quite honest, if one of my sites had presented me with this risk register, I'd say, great, that's tremendous. Now let's talk about the real issues that are going to come whamming in from the side, potentially, that we should be aware of and planning for.
So, are you effectively suggesting we approve this, but put it into an immediate review?
To develop, because I'd be looking at a meeting, and we all have enough meetings, to say, what are the real risks that are going to impact in a number of areas? It may be there are none, but actually, I think there are some.
Okay. Tony?
Yeah, I'd just like to probably echo Councillor Pederick's view on that. I suppose, again, what I'm not quite understanding is that you've got this sort of risk register which feels, as you say, fairly generic and large. And actually, there are very specific details that probably do need to be somewhere. Now, perhaps a solution to that may be that the risk register for something like Lord's Court should be held by the committee that is responsible for it. And therefore, each committee should have its own risk register specific to itself, especially if they have a budget. Because then it will enable a better decision-making process by each one of those individual committees to understand the level of risk they're holding as a committee and what the impact of their decisions will be made upon that risk register. And at the moment, that feels like a piece of the jigsaw that's not quite there.
Okay. Kevin?
Yeah, I think those are good points. And again, similar to standing orders, I perceive this as a living document. And I also think that, as well as the committees having input, the staff that report to those committees need to have input, because they will know things that we don't, and they will know potential risks of all kinds that we're not aware of. So I can echo those previous comments.
I just want to say it's great to welcome new councillors, and Councillor Petherick seems to have a particular interest and an awful lot of experience in this particular subject. Yeah. And I think it would be wonderful if he were to bring that experience through and help us through this process. Because it sounds like you know much more than we do.
I'll second. He's in.
Well, then keep quiet.
Yeah, so I would agree with the comments around the table entirely, and I think it's really important that we have more detailed risk assessments for each individual project initiative. So, as you say, the ones in the current one refer to generally to our assets, but we do need more specifics. And of course, we do have them for our various projects. Like Company's Point had very detailed risk assessments and so on. And we will be considering Lord's Court, of course, in much more detail at a future meeting. In fact, we'll be coming to the Corporate and Democratic Services next committee meeting. And we need, as a council, to be considering all aspects of that project and implications, and coming up with a strategy for moving forward. So I completely completely agree with that.
Okay. So how do we want to work the proposal?
Well, I mean, do you want to do it? No, you carry on. Well, I propose that we accept the risk register that we currently have, but again with the proviso that we set up a working group with the LSA to investigate the commissioning of risk registers appropriate to each committee. How does that sound?
I'm content with that.
Is that a seconding of it?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody know what they're voting for? Okay, all in favour? Good. Against? Abstain? To note the proposal to develop a Bude-Stratton Town Council strategy 2025 to 29. So this is just noting that there is a proposal to do it. Is everybody happy to note it?
Yeah.
Good stuff. To receive items of correspondence from the clerk.
I would just like to remind councillors to return to me their statement of assurance once they signed it. So that was this very short document which I have asked councillors to have a look at in conjunction with code of conduct. If they're happy with that, if you could please return that to me if you're willing to sign it. I think all the other items from Deputy Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Councillors are more than welcome to attend the May brief on Sunday the 18th of May at the Battle of Stratton Memorial, Riding Rich 4211. If you would like to, thank you.
Sorry, I'll give you 2 seconds. 18th, you say?
Yeah, Sunday the 18th.
What time is that?
To arrive by 11:15.
I remember attending that when you were previously, yeah, and I'll come along to that.
What time is it?
11:45.
I shall. Okay. And on that note,
Hang on, sorry.
Wait. Okay, so.
Yeah, I think we all forgot it, but should we have appointed a working group then to review the standing orders?
that was part of the proposal, wasn't it?
Yeah, but do we appoint members to it, or are we going with the same group as us?
It's not an agenda, we need to bring it back and make it an agenda item, I think.
Yeah.
Come on, Tom. The standing orders you want to review.
One other point is that one of the things in the standing orders is that meetings only last 2 hours.
Yes, I know. All right, as opposed to note the date, the next meeting, Thursday, 5th of June 2025. Game over, meeting closed, welcome everybody.